This is Frontpage with Njideka Maduka, bringing clarity to the headlines, one page at a time.
Well, you bet. The Frontpage, bringing clarity to the headlines, one page at a time, is Tuesday, August the 26th. How you doing? Hope you're great. Hope you're fantastic. Well, if you just joined us for the first time, this is where we look at the most interesting stories on our national dailies. Some of those stories make our front pages, and we'll do me free to come and talk about them and try to make sense of them, because sometimes they can actually be quite difficult to grasp. And so what we'll do is to distill them one after the other. My name is Njideka Maduka, and of course we're going to keep it quite simple, just so that we don't overwhelm ourselves with plenty news. And so what do we have? We have the Vanguard, we have the Punch, and of course the Guardian.
This is Frontpage with Njideka Maduka, bringing clarity to the headlines, one page at a time.
Well, let's start with the first paper, the Vanguard. On the front page, politics, 2027 polls, PDP zones presidency to South, says APC won't play fair. 2027 PDP zones presidency to South, says APC won't play fair. Well, to stand a chance beating the ruling All Progressives Congress APC and President Bola Tinubu, the main opposition party, People's Democratic Party, yesterday zoned a ticket for the 2027 presidential election to the South. By so doing, the party sidestepped what it saw as the mistake it made in 2023 when it threw its presidential ticket open, which led to the North producing the national chairman and presidential flag bearer, a development that contributed to its loss of the poll and various crises that are yet to be completely resolved. Well, PDP held their 102nd NEC meeting yesterday in Abuja, where key decisions were taken, especially when it comes to the zoning of offices, just like the lead has told us. They zoned the presidential position to the South, and of course the North retained its chairmanship position. I mean, zoning used to be the tradition. If the North occupied the chairmanship position, the South is expected to occupy the presidential position and vice versa. This was the tradition until 2023, when the zoning committee threw it open, and it led to crisis which almost engulfed the party to this day. I mean, they're trying to right now struggle out of that crisis. So some people are saying the zoning committee was specific as to which zone guess what, because obviously they had learned their lessons from the mistake of 2023. But we also have to ask the question, why was the race thrown open in 2023? Was it because Atiku Abubakar was saying, as the strong man of the party, that could challenge names, big names like Bola Tinubu, or because PDP was too confused as to whether the North had completed its tenure after the death of Yar'Adua as far back as 2009. And so in order to play it safe, given the sentiment that it was the turn of the South, Buhari and APC having almost completed its term, they decided to throw it open. Anyway, Atiku has now exited the party, and that too may have made it easy for the zoning committee to zone it specifically to the South. But now that they have zoned it to the South, who does the cap fit? Seyi Makinde, who is Oyo State Governor, is widely reported to be interested in this race. Can he challenge the like of Tinubu or Atiku, as if Atiku runs in another party? How much is he known to the voters? Or will the PDP structure, be a determinant factor? What if somebody like Obi runs under another party? Because, that will automatically affect the gains of PDP, because Obi too has his supporters. So also Atiku Abubakar, who may corner the northern votes. So will PDP put their faith in Makinde, or will they bring the former president, Goodluck Jonathan, who is also rumored to being wooed to the party, or even Obi? Now that they have zoned the presidential seat to the south, what does that mean for 2027 election win? Will the southern votes be divided, just as it happened in 2023? Will the voters be caught between Tinubu or Obi, if Obi decides to run? Or will President Bola Tinubu have consolidated his support base by 2027, or even expanded it? If Atiku is running, will the voting pattern be divided between the north and the south? Because if you notice in 2023, Tinubu's votes compared to what Buhari scored in 2015 and 2019 was slashed. Buhari scored over 50 million votes in 2015 and 2019. You would have thought that Buhari's support base will tilt towards Tinubu in 2023, and he would get the number of votes Buhari got. But what you saw was voters turning between two southern candidates and a northern candidate. And given the current hardship in the country, will the northern base reduce its support for Tinubu, or will Tinubu consolidate, like I said, his support? Only time will tell. In the case of PDP, you also have the issue of microzoning. That is, after the presidential ticket has been zoned to the south, which region, which political zone in the south will get it? Is it the southeast, southwest, or the south? Will some people insist on southwest because Tinubu is from the southwest and they need somebody from the southwest to complete that tenure? And having zoned it to the south, will the person do one term? Based on people who have been talking about how it is a turn of the south and there is this rotation between the north and the south. So what is it going to be? This is another hurdle that they may have to cross, or it may not even be an issue. It could be they may be focused on getting a most formidable person who could challenge President Bola Tinubu. Either way, it's going to be a very tough contest. So I guess we have to wish all of the parties good luck, right? We're leaving that story on the Vanguard. We're moving on to Punch. The Punch, you have the big bold headline on the front page. Power generation stock at 5,500 megawatts as BASA Gas Regulatory Authority. Power generation stock at 5,500 megawatts as BASA Gas Regulatory Authority. Well, the lead says it appears Nigeria's power grid is defying efforts to ramp up electricity supply to 6,000 megawatts as electricity on the grid has been hovering around 5,500 megawatts for months. This came as the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission transferred the regulatory market in Bayelsa State to the Bayelsa Electricity Regulatory Agency. Wow. We're learning that the Minister of Power, Adebayo Adilabi, promised to raise power generation to 6,000 megawatts before the end of 2024, which is last year. But this was not achieved. On March 5, Adelabu reviewed, according to what Punch is saying, that power generation increased to a new high of 6,003 megawatts due to the Band A tariff increase, with an assurance that this would get to 7,000 megawatts. However, the feat could not be sustained for a few days. Nothing to see here actually, except the usual promise and fail. The minister took it upon himself to promise a rise in power generation or a rise in generation capacity. But the question to ask is he in the shoes of the generation companies, that is the Gencos, to be able to make that promise? Has he determined the state of the infrastructure, whether they are old or new, and whether they are functioning optimally? Because if you have a dilapidated infrastructure, there is no how the generation can increase. It's like expecting a worn-out car or a worn-out machine to function as it should when there are certain parts that need to be fixed or even totally replaced. Let's not also forget that this infrastructural gap cuts across to even the transmission company of Nigeria and the distribution companies, not just the Gencos. All right. Sometimes they fail to, that is the TCN and of course Gencos, sometimes they fail to evacuate or distribute what the Gencos have generated because their own infrastructure cannot carry it. Either the infrastructure is worn out or needs some sort of overhaul. That's why you have something like shedding loads. They will give them some megawatts of electricity and they return it back to generation companies. All right. So these are the issues when it comes to infrastructural deficit. Besides, can the minister also determine the level of gas supply to the Gencos? If gas suppliers are being owed, will there be gas to operate the gas plants? Or if there is vandalization of gas pipelines, where will you get gas to supply to the Gencos? The hydro plants as well, is there enough water at the dams? And we get stories of dry season and there is not enough water, and the hydropower plants cannot function. Let's not also forget the 4 trillion naira debt being owed Gencos. Remember when the Enugu Electricity Regulatory Commission reduced the tariff for customers? That was when we got to hear that the Gencos were owed to the tune of 4 trillion naira. And so if that's the reality, if you're owing somebody that kind of amount, there's a possibility that the person will not have enough fund to operate, to replace machines, to invest just so that they can give the optimal service to their customers. So to what extent is that debt affecting their capacity to generate? So we need to know which is the problem before we begin to make promises on increasing our generation capacity. Secondly, the minister, according to this report, says something about the power generation increasing after an increase in Band A tariff. I hope it's not what I am thinking. I hope that it's not a claim, or he's not trying to lay claim to the fact that the increase in generation was as a result of the money realized from the tariff increase, which in turn provided the Gencos with enough money to invest in infrastructure and subsequently improved generation capacity. Because if such is the case, why has generation gone down or remained stagnant? Is it that the Gencos are no longer paid? Is it that the distribution companies are no longer getting enough money to now pay the transmission companies, who in turn will pay the Gencos? I don't know. But I know sometimes we like to make bogus claims in order to prove to observers that our policies and decisions are working. Like if we want to prove that this is working, we'll begin to say, oh, see, this policy you thought was not good, see how it's bringing us good, when the subsidy thing was removed. And we began to hear things like, oh, we're now saving a lot from subsidy. We're now realizing money from subsidy. Monthly federal allocation has increased, And so the governors are getting enough money, the federal government is getting enough money. But you want to ask, how has that translated to better life for the people? Nobody is answering that question. Or you see things like maybe the NNPCL deciding to clamp down on oil bunkering and vandals. And all of a sudden we begin to hear news about increase in our crude oil production and all of these things. Then after some time, you don't get to hear anything at all. And the next thing we hear is, oh, our capacity has reduced. And so sometimes we just lay claims to things to convince ourselves that we're doing well. But you look at the country, it seems it's stagnant. Nothing is actually moving. But we'll leave that particular story. Like I said earlier, we're going to keep it quite simple and brief, just so that we don't overwhelm ourselves. So we're just going to give a mention to the headlines on The Guardian. Look at this one. On the front page of The Guardian, U.S. Defense new social media vetting for visa applicants. U.S. Defense new social media vetting for visa applicants. Basically, trying to defend their latest visa policy, which has to do with applicants, detailing them with their social media handles and accounts in the past 5 years, saying it's for the betterment of U.S., for the security of the U.S. Well, I guess the people who are interested in that will know what to do. I have this one on The Guardian as well. Tinubu signed BASA agreement with Brazil. Tinubu signed BASA agreement with Brazil. That's a bilateral air service agreement. From what The Guardian is reporting, is to create a framework for direct air connecting between Nigeria and Brazil, opening new opportunities for trade, tourism, investment, and cultural exchange. Direct flights, just so that you can have direct entry into a country instead of all of these stopovers, making the journey a bit easier for travelers. As part of the gains of the president to travel to Brazil on a 2-day state visit, so I guess we would like to see how this plays out. We're already learning that Airpeace has been able to secure a direct flight to Brazil, which is some sort of good news. Hoping that it can be sustained and we don't get to hear stories of how one side is cheating on the other, right? This is where we'll draw the curtain on the front page today with me, Njideka Maduka. Hoping that you go out there, have a fantastic day. Let's know what you think about some of the headlines on our front pages today. Do drop your comments in the comment section. What do you think about news making our front pages in Nigeria? Follow me on my social media. Simply go to linktr.ee/NjidekaMaduka. You will see my social media handles, and let's keep the conversation going. One headline, one page at a time. I will see you next time, hopefully. Yes, keep yourself informed abreast of the developments in the country so that we can understand the news properly and make the better choices. Have a fantastic Tuesday.